first and foremost, thank you for taking time out of your day to chat all things last thing Mary saw. I guess we could probably start with what the film is about, without too many spoilers for those that haven't read up on it. What happens in it?
So The Last Thing Mary Saw is like a period horror drama set in 1843 in rural New York, and it revolves around a young woman, Mary, who's under investigation after the mysterious death of her family's matriarch. And without saying too much, as she retells her side of the story and she recalls the event that brought about the tragedy, she begins to shed some light on her relationship with the housemaid and on the ageless forces also that seem to have played a role in the ultimate downfall of her household. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist.
And I mean, how did the idea pop into your head?
Well, so it started pretty visually because I was doing a lot of studying and a lot of researching into 19th century Northern European art, especially. And I noticed there were a lot of interesting visual threads from a lot of great painters from Denmark, especially Faroe Islands, which were a combination of funeral scenes, female subjects in 19th century homes, very quiet, very composed. And so the idea started to brew, coming from like, I wonder what those kind of very still, austere figures are really thinking about. Like, I wonder what's going through their mind. And that kind of made its way into the very painterly composed style of the movie itself. And so that, and I started to couple that with some of my own kind of thinking that I began to do about like my upbringing as a Catholic person, growing up in Italy, and like some of the disconnect that I've been feeling surrounding that, and some of the frustrations that I begin to feel when you realize kind of all the contradictions that that religion kind of is deeply like they're deeply sewn into religion, into Christianity, and like a culture that calls itself inclusive when instead is just a process of exclusion of people who don't fit a particular box. And so I wanted to expose that a little bit, and I wanted to think about all those things and like some of the things that I was taught as true and as meant to be geared towards a greater good, that are actually a lot of the times just shortcuts to harm people. And so yeah, this kind of combination of visual and personal reflection.
And although it's set in 1843, it's a lot of the themes and issues within it are still really relevant today. What advantages do you think you have as a story maker to tell this in this other time period?
Well, the interesting thing about the time period and making period films in general is, there's always an assumption, and there used to be an assumption on my end too, of everything is different in the 1800s. It's like people speak completely differently and they dress completely differently. And as much as some of those elements are, yes, they are different, but when it comes to also the issues that people used to deal with, it's like we haven't quite come out of the woods. Like, it's like we're crawling slowly out of a place where we used to not be accepting of so many things, and like we're slowly kind of approaching a level of acceptance that, as far as minorities, sexual orientations, that feels a little more livable. And I think being able to open that like to unearth all that kind of research and visual threads and everything, and being able to relate them to something that I know many people still struggle with. It makes the story modern, and it makes the process very modern, and it makes it very relevant. Because ultimately, when you're making a movie, like for me at least, like the most important basic question is why you're making it, and that informs the entire process. That means, why does this shot have to be like this? Why does the light have to look like this? Why everything? And so knowing that this is a conversation that should still be happening allows you to have that deeper, bigger why that informs the rest of the process so much better. So that was a great advantage.
I mean, for me, the film was sort of built around, these two key scenes. The dinner preparation scene, and then later on, the dinner itself. Both of these scenes are so thick with dread and tension and anticipation. How did you go about achieving that? Because it feels like it was sort of like injected directly into the print.
Yeah, no, I mean, those were definitely some of the most challenging scenes. So much of it was like, I tried to give myself a pretty big limitation, which was to not really have anybody speak. I mean, like in the second and third act of the movie, there is like very, very, very little speaking. There is a character, the intruder, that comes in, played by Rory Culkin, who's kind of a chatter a little bit, but other than him, like, nobody says much. And so that, I think, as much as it was a limitation, that began kind of a very helpful tool ultimately. And that I began to realize it as I was editing the movie with my editors, like, the fact that nobody's speaking, that we can like bring the sound design and the rattling of the silverware of the table in, as opposed to dialogue, is just kind of creating that tension for us. And I think, there's a lot of coordination, a lot of blocking that goes into shooting those little moments. I mean, those two big scenes took a lot of days to shoot. But then again, when you can't say anything, and it's all about the blocking, it's all about the camera, it's like you're going back to the basics of what it takes to make a good movie. And it's like, it's just more fun. And it's like so challenging and kind of mind-boggling. And like, you spend a lot of time kind of not really knowing if you have said enough things for the audience and everything. But it was all about, I think it all became a combination of blocking, a lot of choreography, and the sound design that all together created these kind of two big, kind of like silent, quiet monsters of scenes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's your first feature, and you're working with some children. You're working with some, there are two things that you're always told not to do. How did you find the experience?
Yeah, they tell you not to work with children, animals, a lot of special effects and period details, and I just decided to just make a big, to put it all in a blender and see what came out on the other end. It's just, there are so many, you just do not know how to do so many of the things that a feature film is going to like throw at you. So you just kind of, you don't avoid things on the page, you just put them in, and then making a feature, it feels so daunting when you look at it all at once, but then just every day, like today we're shooting chicken. Okay, that's all I have to think about. And tomorrow we're shooting all the scenes with Elijah, who plays Matthew, Mary's sister. And that's all I'm going to be thinking about. It's like one by one, I think you just have to take all these little like big elements and take them as one thing, just one thing at a time. And it is daunting, but I think ultimately, there are a lot of things that I learned now from making this movie that I don't have to learn again, that I can just, learn how to do better, if anything. So you have to scare yourself a little bit into doing things on a movie set, for sure.
I mean, the film's recently been picked up by Shudder. I think it's coming on Shudder early next year. I mean, it's such a, it's the horror streaming platform, for genre content. It's such a wide range and variety. How are you feeling about, your filming up in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited, and I mean, I'm incredibly honored. I also like it makes me feel really good, because I've been watching Shudder for a while at this point, and the thing is that when people told me to check it out a couple of years ago, I was like, it seems like I'm not sure that I want to spend my time on a streaming platform that's only for horror movies, and I was expecting a lot of the same thing. But the truth is that Shudder has this awesome, incredible, kind of varied spectrum of content, and just feeling like they want you to be a part of it is so, I mean, it's flattering, it's an honor, and I feel like it's also like a chance to learn, because I've been working with people there at Shudder that just knows what they're talking about so much, and they are objectively, honestly, they are taking a risk with our movie, because our movie is not necessarily like a very conventional horror film. And so I just think that the curiosity that they have for our project, it's all that more flattering if possible. Yeah, so I'm very honored.
And finally, the film screens at FrightFest this weekend. FrightFest holders are frantically trying to work out, what they're going to do with their weekend. What are they going to get from your film that they might not get from some of the others if they pick to watch it?
That's a really good question, actually. I think, well, first of all, I'm very, very excited to see the reaction of people watching this movie in a movie theater. I'm a big promoter, big fan of, watching things from home, of course, but I'm also kind of curious to see how the atmosphere and all those elements that we crafted so much in our movie. I'm curious to see how people respond to them watching it in a movie theater. I believe that, like you said, the story, it does have a certain, hopefully it does have a certain modernity to it. And I think being able to watch something that's set so long ago, but that can speak so much to the present, has always been my goal. And I think that's something that you can find in my movie that hopefully people take away from, because so many of the antagonistic forces that we see in this 1800 setting, they do exist nowadays. There are people who function like that. And so I think the opportunity of watching something that takes you out, that allows you to escape a little bit, because it's 200 years ago and it's supernatural and it's whatever, but that also helps you focus on what's happening today. Hopefully that's a pretty unique quality that my movie has, and that people can feel inspired by.
I wish you the best of luck with the screening and the release.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And we did it. She didn't interrupt us.
That's awesome. Also, I wanted to say I read your review for the movie. Thank you so much for your work, and it was very, very thoughtful. Thank you.
Well, you're right. If I enjoy a film, people say it so often. I say, well, I can't sit there and pretend I like something. So it's
no, absolutely, I agree. Awesome.
But yes, I will let you get on with the next one, and best of luck with the film.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.